Hello, everybody. My name's Tom, and I'm back talking about F1 Fantasy. I've got that Friday feeling. There's something quite exciting about firing up the recording software and recording some final thoughts ahead of a Grand Prix weekend. And we're going into the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Much easier if I just stick to saying Baku, isn't it? But yeah, we're going into Baku, and it's once again seemingly pretty wide open. The Red Bulls have certainly pulled it back, as you can see the practice times from FP1, FP2 on your screen over on the right hand side. Have a look through there if you haven't already seen them. We're going to have a quick look through the practice debrief on the F1 website. What is that? Got some gaming hub message, fantastic. So we're going to have a quick look through the race pace simulations and also the qualifying pace simulations, just sort of see where we're at. Then we'll go over to the team selection itself, this is my team at the moment, but we'll get to that in a sec. So first things first is, what's kind of the word around the paddock at the moment? The word is that the Red Bulls are looking pretty strong. I managed to watch FP2 earlier, and the Red Bulls look good, and including Perez himself. You see Perez right up the top. He was P3, P2 across the two sessions. Perez consistently through this season has been pretty bad, and consistently beyond P10, down in P15 or something. Just don't know what he's doing basically, but he's looked quick, and we know he's got a good record around here as well. So the fact that he's up there as well as Max Verstappen, they've got this floor update, which is obviously helping them. They're back in it. They're right back in it. And in fact, the F1 website has put them back at the very top, only just ahead of McLaren in terms of race pace. But that looks very promising for the Red Bulls, and indeed the McLaren still in the fight. Of course, this isn't exactly gospel or anything. This isn't exactly how it's going to turn out, as we all know, but it's a good little guide to go off. Although FP1 was quite disrupted, quite a few red flags, so it's a bit annoying we didn't get quite as much data as we might have wanted. But yeah, in terms of race pace, obviously I'm focusing heavily here on the top four. The main takeaway here is that Red Bull are really right back in it. Mercedes, kind of a mixed day for them, because they had George Russell, who didn't have a lot of running, had some sort of power unit issue. So yeah, I think they managed to switch that out, and he got some running, but they had another problem at the end of FP2. So yeah, a bit of a hit and miss day for them. But Lewis Hamilton looks strong pretty consistently throughout. And the Ferraris, look at the race pace simulation here, isn't spectacular, but they did look pretty decent apart from when Leclerc managed to put in the wall. And there was cars, to be fair. It wasn't just Ferraris. There's cars kind of going everywhere. Just spinning off, going down the escape roads and stuff. It was a bit of a messy FP1 in particular. But anyway, we've got qualifying simulation pace here as well. Ferrari's looking quick. And we know that the Ferraris have, I'll put my teeth back in a minute. The Ferraris have improved their general race pace, their tyre wear, degradation. And the Ferraris obviously are looking good here in terms of quali pace, much better than they are in terms of race pace, but that's generally not a great thing in F1 Fantasy, because you qualify high, and if your race pace is a couple of tenths off the other guys, then you're liable to Leclerc very easily could put it on pole and then finish the race like P4, P5. That's not especially great for fantasy, so it does concern me slightly going into the Ferraris. However, it's hard to say because we didn't get a great deal of information with the limited running, broken up with the red flags and that, and Leclerc didn't really get much of a long run in. I think he did 3 laps of a long run, if you can even qualify that as a long run. So all this kind of the long run data here is kind of based off Carlos Sainz. So I think Leclerc, in the form he's in, would probably drag this a bit closer to the top here. So it's really tough one to interpret, but what we can pull out of it is that it's going to be extremely close again, and it may well go down to a bit of gut feeling like it did in Monza. For me, I had that gut feeling that the Ferraris look good. If we throw over to my team, actually, you can see I went with Charles Leclerc on the 2 times as well. Had that kind of gut feeling. It was so close, and it turned out to be extremely close, but Leclerc managed to get that win. Obviously, some amount of luck in there, which we'll take that, but you've got to gamble at the right time when you're an F1 fantasy manager. If you just stick to a rigid plan, I don't think it's going to get you to the upper echelons. I think you need to, when the calculated risk is in front of you, that you should try and take it now and again, because it can get you up the rankings. So let's have a look at my team. This is my team coming out of Monza. Like I said, I had a really good week. Everyone performed well, mostly got price rises, including a nice chunky 1 million rise from Leclerc, which was much needed after some recent drops in terms of people getting disqualified and stuff. So what are we thinking about going into Azerbaijan with my particular team? I'm not thinking of touching these 3 guys here: Colapinto, Guan Yu, Albon. they're not going anywhere because I don't have the transfers to deal with them. I want to focus on I've only got 2 transfers. I want to focus them all on the top pointy end, high scoring end of my team. I have considered, with Red Bull looking strong, I've considered like completely dropping the McLaren constructor. This is how much I've been like dabbling. That would enable me. I'd have to like drop out either Leclerc or Piastri. I don't know who at the moment, but to bring in to Red Bull and then go in with Perez. I don't know. This might be a bit extreme, but I can quite easily do that. There's just 2 moves. However, this does make me slightly uneasy because of Singapore right around the corner. Singapore is the next race. We know that Red Bulls are pretty terrible there last season. Why does this message keep popping up? It's annoying. The Red Bulls are pretty bad around Singapore last season, and if we're heavy in Red Bull going into Singapore again, although it's quite a different car to last year, we may expect to see similar results, and maybe Red Bull won't be quite as strong. That said, the McLarens weren't especially great in the slow speed stuff around Baku through the practice sessions, according to the F1 website. I read it somewhere earlier today. They were a bit lacking in the slow speed corners, and obviously Singapore, a lot of slow speed corners, so it makes me, again, slight little red flag in the back of my mind going into Singapore for McLaren. At the same time, I'm not convinced by Red Bulls either. Let's make this a bit bigger. There we go. So this is definitely an option if the Red Bulls look like they're going to stomp it in FP3. If Perez is right up there in the top 1, 2, maybe 3 in FP3, then maybe it's just like worth it, just worth a punt, and then come Singapore, if I need to, I can quite happily switch back down to a McLaren, and then Perez can go to basically anyone. You can probably quite easily get to a Lando Norris as well. I've got $1 million in the bank, so I could just go back to like a triple McLaren or something. However, I could also do that for Baku this weekend, and I know the McLarens aren't quite as on top as they have been in recent weeks, but I still think that the triple McLaren could arguably be the best move. They didn't look fantastic. There is some evidence going around Twitter to say that Lando Norris in particular had his engine turned down because he was so slow in the straight in FP3 Sector 3. When you're slow in the straight, it means the engine isn't necessarily turned up, particularly because Piastri was much faster than Norris in the straight line, which seems a bit iffy. But that said, Norris didn't actually really finish any laps because he kept having issues of yellow flags and stuff, and we had that incident with Gasly in the final bit of his run where he had a purple sector, so we never got the true actual lap time from Lando Norris. So you can see that's why he's actually down in P17 and FP2, because he never really set a true lap time on the soft. So don't feel overly concerned by that if you didn't see what happened in the practice session. So I still think Lando Norris is fine. However, it is just super close, and I don't know if necessarily tripling up on McLarens when we know the likes of Red Bull and Ferrari also look strong as well. Maybe we should be sharing the love a little bit, and I could very well leave it as it is. If I was going to leave it as it is, I wouldn't actually leave it as it is. I would make my one transfer, which would be to upgrade Piastri into Lando Norris, because I've got just enough budget to do so. And the reason I do that is A, it opens up 3 transfers going into Singapore. B, McLaren have made it quite clear that they're kind of leaning towards supporting Lando Norris's charge for the championship, although maybe they should have done that a few races ago. Who knows? Would have been a few more points better off. But yeah, I do think that it looks like team orders could come into play at any point over the next few races, kind of scenario dependent on what's happening in the race and that. But I can very much see a scenario where Oscar Piastri literally just steps aside for Lando Norris at some point, and Lando Norris is still quite the culprit of driver of the day possibilities as well. I think Lando Norris he's got high potential. You can see as well, the last few races, he's really been going for the fastest lap. On the last lap, even with like old tyres, he's just pushing out fastest laps. That's an easy 10 points on the 2 times. I think it's kind of just an easy choice to put Lando Norris in over Piastri now. I think Lando Norris is desperate for every point he can get, and he's going for those fastest laps more than other people. Other people are just like, whatever. But even on old tyres, Lando Norris is like saving up his battery and then pumping out on that final lap when the car's at its lightest, getting those extra 10 points because he's quite clearly going for it. I think is quite a good boon for anyone who's owning Lando Norris in particular on the 2 times with him. So if I was going to just kind of leave it more or less as it is, I would just make that one transfer, open up 3 going into Singapore, and kind of go from there. And I do like this build a lot because it keeps me with the McLaren constructor. Like I said, I already talked about Lando Norris. I've moved the 2 times to him. Leclerc, he's still just under 25 million by a fraction. And so he's still got that capability going up 0.3 or even $1 million if he does perform well this weekend. So I could catch that last big price rise before he becomes an A-tier asset, which is quite appealing. And the Mercedes have also looked, they've been good over the last few races. Haven't been spectacular since the summer break, but they are reverting back to their old floor spec, which is what Hamilton looked pretty comfortable with. And he's come out in interviews after the FP1, FP2 saying that he's more comfortable. So Mercedes certainly still fill me with confidence. I do think if I had the option to, I would go with. In fact, we switch it back. I think if I had luxury transfers and that, I think I would still edge towards Ferrari this weekend in terms of constructor. And I could even go with a team like this. I'm not sure I can't quite get to Lando Norris through there, but I can get to him if I drop out Leclerc. So I could do a double move here where I drop Mercedes for Ferrari and drop Leclerc for Norris. And I think I like this build. I like all these builds, is the problem. Can't control myself. But yeah, I do like this build a lot. It's two transfers. It moves my Mercedes out where I'm confident with Mercedes, but I think Ferrari might be better despite the, where are we? The race pace not quite reflecting that in terms of the F1 sims, but I'm never overly reliant on these sims, to be honest. So yeah, I'm quite happy with this. And like I say, if I'm assuming that Ferrari will be strong around Singapore, which is similar sort of track to Monaco, where they obviously did really well. I'm anticipating that having Ferrari going into Singapore could be a great thing to do. So yeah, I'm quite happy with this team as well. Again, triples up on McLaren's, just hoping that they pull out the bag again. And yeah, the other options I've been looking at do involve the likes of Sergio Perez. So I could drop both these guys at the top, get rid of Leclerc, get rid of Piastri, and that would enable me to bring in Lando Norris and Perez. And I know not everyone's going to have this budget necessarily, so you might not be able to get Perez. Maybe that's a George Russell for you. You might not be able to stretch it to Lando Norris. Maybe it stays as a Leclerc or a Piastri. But for me, because I got the budget to get up to this, then I'm quite happy to go over to this. And I know there'll be people that have even more budget than me. They'll be sat here. They won't need someone like Guan Yu Zhou. They'll be sat with like a Hulkenberg or something, and more power to you, because I wish I had your budget, but I don't. So I got to work with what I got on hand, and my budget, I think it was 122 million at the moment. So yeah, I have considered this as well. I could do a -10 to also drop the Mercedes out for Ferrari, but I didn't take the -10 to get Ferrari and then Monza, and it would have actually netted me 6 points in the end if I took that -10. And again, it's just so close. I'm just not sure -10s are necessarily gonna cut it every week. That said, with Ferrari looking strong here and potentially strong in Singapore, maybe it's worth going Mercedes and Ferrari and -10 in it. Get Lando Norris as a 2 times. Get some Red Bull coverage as they look kind of revived this weekend. Sergio Perez on a track that really suits him. He's the street king, as we know, or at least he has been in the past. He's won here a couple of times. He's got fantastic record around here. Honestly, fantastic record. And he won here last year as well. So it's kind of fresh in his mind, as fresh as a victory can be, I suppose. If he's going to have a good weekend for the rest of the season, then this could well be it. I mean, we've obviously got Mexico coming up as well. Maybe he'll excel at a home race, but I genuinely think, home race and everything aside, that if Perez is going to do well, then it could well be this weekend. So I could very well see myself going with a team like this. Like I said, I'm not sure about the -10, so I might stick with the Mercedes. Oh, fantasy is a fun game at the moment, isn't it? Because there's just so many options. I need to see FP3 before I finally make a decision. I guess the only other sort of housework to clear up is the likes of the news about Sargeant. Oh, obviously, I haven't got many of my teams, but anyone that has got Sargeant, I guess, will probably be wondering what to do with him. And there's lots of stuff going around on Twitter saying to use a no negative. I personally don't have Sargeant. I don't have no negative, so I don't have to worry about it. But if you do have Logan Sargeant, I mean, I can see the appeal of using a no negative at this point. I still think I'd probably rather save it for a sprint race to come, depending on what other chips you've got available remaining. Because the idea is going around Twitter that you can use a no negative, which will negate the effect of Sargeant, give you the unclassified points of whatever it is, -25, because it'll be -5 qualifying, -20 for the race. So Sargent's going to score you -25 if you've got him. There's some people thinking it's a good idea to use a no negative to negate that. Of course, there's no guarantee that the developers have even thought about that, and you might still end up with the negative points. I don't know. I doubt that's going to happen, but I just wouldn't surprise me if someone used a no negative and they still score negative for an inactive asset. Wouldn't surprise me. Who knows? I don't mean, maybe the chips don't apply to inactive assets. Like, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Maybe it's just a straight, your Sargent's going to score -25 and it's unaffected by chips. So, I mean, can you put like the 2 times on an inactive asset. I don't know. I don't have him to try it out. I doubt you can. But either way, I don't know if I was the Sargeant owner, I'd be a bit hesitant to use a no negative, because you can imagine if you use a no negative and then it doesn't work and Sargeant still scores you to -25. I don't think that would happen, but it's in the back of my mind that it might. So just be wary if you are a Sargeant owner. And also if you use a no negative, and yes, Baku is a bit of a track where there could well be some DNFs. Which is fine, but also got Singapore next as well, and if you've used no negative here to hold on to Sargeant so you can maintain your effective gain in budget, you're just going to have the same problem going into Singapore. You're still going to have to transfer him out. You're not going to have no negative to use every week, so you're just kind of saving yourself for a week, but then you're going to have the same issue going into Singapore. So I'm not entirely convinced that using no negative is worth it. Like I say, if it was me personally, I'd probably hold off. I'd just transfer out Sargeant. I know there'll be some people that have made early transfers, but you're getting punished for making early transfers right now if you've still got Sargeant in your team. You might just have to bite the bullet and take a -10, -20. I don't know if you've got wildcard left. Maybe you can cover it with the wildcard to get rid of Sargeant. Similar sort of issue for Magnussen, although he should be back. There was some chit chat today about Behrman just staying for the rest of the season. It does actually kind of make sense as well, to be honest, but in terms of owning Behrman, I wouldn't. 15 million is a real kick in the teeth. It's just a bit of a joke. His prize coming out of Saudi Arabia as a Ferrari driver, it's just a joke. It's just laziness from the fantasy developers, in my opinion. They should have made him like at least 8 or 9 million. At least a lot of people probably would have gone for him then, made him a bit more interesting. Behrman's just a no-go. If you got Sargeant, I'd probably just transfer him out rather than using no negative. In terms of other chips, final fix is still just waiting in my back pocket. As soon as there's like a potential DNS situation, whether they're on the grid or whatever, and then suddenly the media are going so excited because there's a problem with someone's car and they can't start the race and they're going to get -20 for that. That's kind of what I'm waiting for the final fix, but otherwise I'm just going to throw it in towards the end of the season on a bit of a punt. 3 times, not touching that until sprint race, maybe in Kota in a couple of weeks' time or a few weeks' time as it is. And that's kind of all there is to it, really, in terms of chips. I don't know what else I've got left. I think I've used everything else. I've only got those 3 left, haven't I? Got final fix 3 times. Oh, I've got autopilot as well. I wouldn't be using autopilot yet. Again, I'll probably use it maybe on a sprint or at least on a more dangerous track. Maybe like something like Brazil where anything wild can happen. It's like a wild track where we can also autopilot might come in handy. I don't know. But anyway, I think I'm kind of rambling on about nothing at the moment. So let's kind of wrap it up. Bottom line is, I guess, I kind of think I need to get Norris back in my team. Even though he hasn't looked amazing today, I still think he's going to be right up there on the podium come Sunday. Possibly winning the race. I don't know, but I think I need him in my team going forward. I'm not really interested in getting something like Max Verstappen. It's just too expensive. I don't want to just break my team apart too much to wedge these guys in, the Red Bulls in. If I'm going to go Red Bull, it's likely I would take a punt on just Sergio Perez, as you can see on your screen right now. But yeah, I think in summary, like I said earlier, I kind of want a bit of McLaren. I kind of want a bit of Ferrari. I kind of want a bit of Red Bull. It's all a bit of a mess. So I'll wait for FP3. And I'll make my final decision tomorrow. So yeah, gonna go from there. So yeah, thanks very much for listening. I'm sorry I haven't done any other team selection videos earlier on the week, just because I've been busy and also I've been kind of ill. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I've just kind of got over a bit of a coldy thing. So yeah, it's just Anyway, enough chit chat. Let's wrap it up. I'll say good luck, and I'll catch you for some build up to Singapore. Probably in a few days or so. Yeah. So catch you soon. Have a good night. Have a good weekend.